Hey everybody, today I have none other than Raven Chris here at Tishay University, and she's going to school us on what she does.
Yes, so my name is Raven Crush. I am a founder of a local nonprofit, Selfless Hands Foundation. We do emergency crisis, disaster relief. We address food insecurity, and we prevent homelessness.
Okay, can you tell me what made you get started?
Okay, so long story. I'll try to make it short. So basically, when I was in undergrad, one of my closest friends, my best friend, passed away. I went to a major depression. I almost flunked out of school. I didn't know how to, cope with that. And I remember walking through the student union, and they had this program called the Court Program. And pretty much with the Court Program, if you did, I believe it was 400 hours or 300 hours of community service within the time, 4 years. Mm-hmm. I graduated in 3 years. So by the time I came across that program, I was already a year in. Okay. So I was like, man, okay, that's a challenge. That's something that I know would get me out the bed. I've always loved giving back. So I went to the lady and I was like, hey, so I don't really like animals like that. So, Stillwater, I went to Oklahoma State University. So in Stillwater, it was Habitat for Humanity was a thing, but it was also walking the dogs and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm scared of dogs. So I really don't want to do this. So she was like, as long as you're giving back, that's what it is. You can document it. Cool. So I actually started creating care packages and collecting clothing items for people who were going through domestic violence and needed to escape right then and there.
Right. Okay.
As a domestic violence survivor, I know what it's like to go through that, let alone if I had kids or, trying to leave. So I started doing that. Fast forwarding, doing that, Kalani, the singer, she posted about the floods that happened in Baton Rouge. Okay. I was like, okay, I want to help with that. So I called the councilwoman down there. I don't know how I ended up, I guess Google, I was like, okay, let me call the councilwoman. And I basically was telling her, like, hey, I want to help out. She was like, how did you even get, where are you from? I was like, well, I'm from Oklahoma. She was like, you going to bring all this stuff down here? I was like, yeah, why not? I was like 19. So I did a drive from Tulsa, Stillwater, Oklahoma City. A lot of my Divine Nine family and friends, they supported from out of state. And I went down there. My parents was pissed. Super pissed. Because they knew I was doing a drive, but they was like, okay, so sweetie, how you going to get it down there? I was like, I'm going to take it. Like, the hell you are. So, they was like, what? So, but, it was already too late. I already paid for the stuff, so me and my cousin went down there and it opened my eyes. It was just like meeting other college students where they was here today and then they lost everything the next day and they couldn't go back to school. So I was like, man, if this is happening in Baton Rouge, Hurricane Harvey in Houston, what happens when some of us on the east side, what happens? We have GoFundMe and stuff like that, but a lot of the resources aren't available to us. Okay. So I figured, well, if I'm doing this for everyone else, let me come back home. Right. And do it. Okay. So I graduated from Oklahoma State University, moved back home, became a Child Protective Services worker, CPS, and I was very blessed to be able to. Of course, I had parents that was just like, gotta take a kid, just got you made it hard, And then it was a lot of crappy parents, but then it was also a lot of amazing parents that they did the best they could, but they were lacking in resources.
I understand that.
Water bill was off. You got a truancy case. Well, you're required to wear school uniforms. I don't have water. Right. So now baby got to miss school. Now I'm at risk of, going to jail for truancy. Things like that. I had to choose between rent or food. So now I'm dealing with my kids going to school saying they're hungry or malnourished, whatever. So it was just all those things. I was paying for people's rent, utilities, everything out of pocket. And I was like, wait a second, this is a thing, So that's really between disaster relief, emergency crisis with house fires, helping people recover from that, and then even just providing the essential needs to families to prevent further child welfare involvement. That's how Selfless Hands became a thing.
Well, we love Selfless Hands.
Oh my God, thank you. We love y'all too.
So how long have you been doing this?
Okay, so I started doing this in 2015. So the work of it was 2015.
Okay.
What made me start it in 2018 was that I became a mobile donation center.
Okay.
So I was basically like, hey, Facebook, who has a bed that y'all ain't using? You know? And I noticed when you go to Goodwill, you know, you'll donate and they'll give you a tax receipt. So I remember a lady, she donated me a bed. She donated me a lot of stuff to help this family that didn't have anything. And she was like, do you have tax receipts? I was like, I don't know what that is. And she was like, you know, like when you go to Goodwill, I said, okay, let me find out. So I Googled, I bought a book trying to understand it. And I was like, oh my God, I got to do a nonprofit. So, fun fact, I actually didn't want to do the nonprofit.
That was going to be the next question.
I had no intentions on doing the nonprofit part. I had no intention on doing the 501c3. Just because I knew it was a lot of paper. I just didn't want to do that. I was like, I just want to give back. I don't want to do all of the formality and everything, but I had to, you know. So if it wasn't for me doing the donation piece, I probably would not have went as far as doing that. So I was like, okay, I gotta come up with a name. Well, I'm being selfless. I'm using my hands. We hands on foundation. Boom.
Really?
Selfless hand foundation. Like, it was literally no deep thing about it. It was literally, we're being selfless. I'm hands on. It got to be a foundation. You know, I thought it had to be foundation because it was nonprofit foundation.
That's cool.
So that's selfless hands.
Where do you see selfless hands in the next 5 years?
Ooh, that's a good question. So in the next 5 years, I'm hoping that we are fully functional, running in our crisis hub, which is our physical location, serving the community here and consistently expanding out to Tulsa, having our Tulsa Selfless Hands Foundation, and then breeze our way into Dallas. Okay. So here, Tulsa, Dallas.
Okay. So do you ever think it'll be a point where you guys are housing people?
Yes. Okay. So I'm actually sneak peek in the work of trying to get that stuff together, trying to house people, really that transitional deal. Okay. So my goal is, you know, whenever you have families that say they lost everything to here in Oklahoma, tornadoes, fires, floods, we're able to rehouse you and get you to where you're able to be sustainable.
Okay. What do you think is the most people need? Like, is it food? Is it what do people crave the most, I guess? Or
so I would say, for sure, being in Northeast Oklahoma City, a lot of it is food. Okay. And utility assistance. Mainly food, especially with us being considered a food desert. Even still, we have homeland, kind of pricey. Not everybody can afford that, you know. Even me, I still go to Winco just because I get bang for my buck. A lot of people can't afford to go to that homeland. So food insecurity, which is why I have the blessing boxes to try to help out with that. And then we partner with churches and other orgs to do the fresh food and produce distribution. But then when it comes to, I would say, holiday season is when I experience a lot of the need for the rent and utility assistance. Because it's the end of the year, parents are struggling between rent, utility, and then having to make sure they buy their kids Christmas gifts. During the holiday season, we're dealing with a lot more fires that's happening. I know that December, January is that peak. Now I'm dealing with a lot of fires, that looks like people having generators in the home and it catches on fire, sparks a fire, or kids playing around and knocks over a Christmas tree onto the candle, and then now the whole apartment's on fire, or not cooking their turkey properly.
That makes sense.
Up fire,
I've always wondered. Now, maybe you don't have the answer. Maybe you do. Mm-hmm. Why do people always give out turkeys during holiday season? What is that?
So it's funny you say that because I am actually, I won't say I'm against.
I'm against it. I don't know why.
It's like, thanks. But if they don't have anywhere to cook it.
That's my thought.
what we actually started doing, and shout out to Hanks. I'm looking forward to this upcoming, season. But what we're starting to do is we'll ask, so for the family that can't afford, so let's say back in November, we had the tornado, we had all this crazy stuff that happened in November. It was people without power. Okay. They lost everything in their fridge. So we actually went and we bought groceries for the families, so that they can still, because they had their power cut back on, but they lost all that, food.
Yeah.
So money wasted, and they didn't have the money to replenish. So we actually sponsored groceries for the families to be able to still have a meal. And for the families that didn't have a place to cook, we actually got them Thanksgiving meals.
Oh, that's
so
dope.
They didn't have to worry about it.
Okay.
So we got them a cooked turkey, a cooked chicken, things that they could just eat,
Right. That's cool.
Even with vegetables, I see people give homeless people
canned goods.
And it's like,
it's not even a pop open one, it's just a can.
Not even. It's just, with what can opener can they open that? So it's funny because when I first started, ignorance. Well, not ignorance, but I didn't, I just didn't think about it. I just wanted to just help. But then over time, you just, are you checking off a box, or are you actually thinking about, if you are in this position, what can you do? Even with feeding the homeless. Feeding the homeless is a great thing.
Okay.
But I stopped doing it. The reason I stopped doing it, I'm sorry, I thought I had legs on me. The reason I stopped doing it was because when we would go out there, it would be 2 or 3 other orgs doing the same thing at the same time. So by the time we came out there with our stuff, they're like, we already ate. Like, we done had like 2 or 3 meals because 2 churches then came. So now I'm like, okay, I'll feed the homeless as needed whenever they come to us and, hey, we just need food. We gonna bring out food. But as far as like, now my concern is, how can I get you out of homelessness? So now I'm reaching out to agencies like, if you have homeless people that are homeless because they were displaced after COVID, let me know so we can get them rehoused. Let's say somebody is couch homeless, right? Because, which we won't talk about that within our community, but you got your auntie and uncle that's been staying with your grandma for the past 10 years. Mm-hmm. They're homeless.
Right.
Because more than likely they have their own place, but something happened. Mm-hmm. They're couch homeless. They just happen to be able to stay with grandma.
Would they consider that still a actual need, or would they consider that?
So, not really.
Okay.
Most homeless agencies, to my knowledge, when I talk to them, they don't prioritize that because you have a roof over your head.
Okay.
But that's after years of you already been there. We should have been there when it happened. Mm-hmm. So when you were laid off and now evicted from your home, that's where we should have came in. Because why were you laid off? Well, we were laid off because we weren't able to come to work because we lost our home to a tornado. And our job didn't give us no mercy. Mm-hmm. We were laid off because I couldn't pay the bills because we got laid off from COVID. Mm-hmm. I am a pregnant mom that just is about to have her baby, and I need to go on maternity leave, but I don't have enough hours. Mm-hmm. So they said, hey, you're a great worker. We love you, but we have to let you go. Come back when you're able to work. I still got bills.
Right, bills still coming. What type of things do you need people to give to Selfless Hands?
Money. But honestly, seriously, like, money helps because that goes towards our initiatives, directed to there. But items, hygiene items, toiletry items. We're coming up on our 7th annual back to school bash. Hygiene, gently worn items. So I always reiterate this: do not donate what you got rid of because you don't want to wear it no more. It's, we got a hole in it. Well, I'll give it to the homeless person. They'll be glad to have it. They're still human. Right. It's like, I'm not giving them no beat up shoes just because I would go buy them some new shoes before I give them your beat up shoes, and I think sometimes we dehumanize them, but hygiene, toiletry, school supplies, those are the main things. And of course, always food, cleaning out your pantry. It's kind of a dark thing to say, but even with, we have people who they'll be like, hey, like, my cousin just died. We cleaned our house, and she has a whole bunch of food that's like still intact. Let me get that off for you. So and it's so crazy because it's to me it's so dark, but it's like reality is.
It's reality. Can't nobody else use it. So.
Can't nobody else eat it. Right. Y'all ain't gonna eat it. I know some people that will.
Right.
So yeah, I get creative, as you can tell.
Okay, that's awesome. So with everything that you do, what do you feel like is the hardest part about what you do?
The hardest part about what I do is the fact that I can't help everybody. I so want to help everybody in every capacity, but I can't.
Did you watch The Big Help as a kid?
I think I did, but not a lot. I can't.
Okay.
Well, not a lot, but I couldn't tell you about it.
Okay.
So
I watched it as a kid, and I was so excited. I was like, "Oh, I want the Big Help to come help," and then I realized they were never coming.
Yeah.
So then I had to start helping myself.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Actually, where can I see it on?
It used to be on Nickelodeon.
Okay.
It used to be like one of those things that they do in the community.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me check that out because I think I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you about it. So I need to go refresh my memory on it. That sounds like a really impactful show.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was like they just go to different communities and do different things, build parks and stuff like that.
That sounds like what we do. So yeah, I definitely need to watch that. Thank you for that.
Do you feel like with Selfless Hands, do people look at you different with what you do than before they knew that you did this?
I don't know. That's a really good question because every year I'll do the back to school bash, but I guess people they know Selfless Hands do it, but then it's like when I'm talking to them. And I'll say, like, back to school bash that happened in ICE. They're like, yeah, we go every year. I'm like, yeah, I did that. They're like, girl, what? Like, what? So it's not really a change. Well, actually, it kind of is because once they realize that I do it, they're more apt to support because they have a face behind it.
That's awesome.
So they're like, okay, well, girl, I got this, So, yes, I definitely see that. But then a lot of times on the other side of being human is like when people reach out to me, I know it's probably because they need something versus like, hey, Raven, just checking on you. It's like, hey, girl, you have some resources. And I just be waiting on it. So like now I even have to kind of be like, hey, how can I help you? Because I already know more than likely 99.9 times that you're probably asking me for something that I can provide to you. But that's what comes with being a service provider. Is my job is literally to provide.
Do you feel like it's hard to separate your passion from your personal life?
No. I think at one point, yes, because I was grinding so hard because I had just started. So I had to put in that grind. I had to put in that work. And I think at one point it was like trying to struggle between grinding in a healthy way. Okay. But outside of this, I still have a career. I work for the Air Force. So it's like, okay, Selfless Hands can't be 90% of my day. I got to split it up, But now I have actually found a sweet spot. Like my partner, my boyfriend, he helps me with being able to say like, hey, I'm here to support you wherever you need. My family, they take the load off. My parents, they take the load off for me. My siblings do. My volunteers do. My team do. So it's really easy for me to be able to say, okay, we have this, and this that needs to be done. And I have people that fill in that gap so that I don't have to spend a lot of my personal life doing it. So it doesn't interfere, if that makes sense. So I'm able to be Raven in Selfless Hands. I'm able to take that hat off and just be.
That's awesome. That's a beautiful thing. Sense. Yes, it makes perfect sense. Yes. So was it hard building a team? Because everybody ain't got a team. It's hard out here.
Yeah. I went through some challenges. I did. I went through some challenges. People have came and went because a lot of it. And I take, as you grow, you learn as a leader. A good leader takes accountability for what they need to take accountability for. Okay. Even if they messed up, it's still your fault.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, a lot of, when I first started, anybody that just remotely loved the idea of Selfless Hands, I felt like I needed them on my team. It was like, oh, you like Selfless Hands, but come on. And then over time, you realize that, people can support what you do, but they don't necessarily have to be a part of it.
That makes sense.
So it's like having that spirit of discernment when it comes to just even how you pick your friends, how you pick the people you're dating. It's like, okay, this is my goal, this is my mission. Are you in alignment with that? you just because you like this don't mean that you're meant to be a part of that. And that's why I messed up a lot. So a lot of times, I had all these people on my team, but then it was like I was still carrying the load.
You're still doing everything.
I was still doing everything because they just wanted to they love what I do, so they wanted to be there,
right.
But they didn't want to be there in the capacity that I needed them in. So now I actually took a step back last year, took a huge step back, and I had to get back to the why. I had to get back to why did I start this, and then from there I'm like, okay, this is what I need in a team. Mm-hmm. And I actually sat and I interviewed people. I actually got to see like, okay, not even what I can get from you, but what it got to be transactional. Like, right. Why do you want to be here? I need people that's going to be here because it's not going to always be fun. Like people love to see the events and the outcome, but all of those things come with work first. Right. We have to set everything up. If you don't like that part, so it's easier now. Now that I know what I want, what I need.
What has been your hardest no?
My hardest no?
Yes.
I would say the hardest no would be we have a lot of people that need help. And the hardest no that I had to do last year was to completely stop self-defense and to say, we need to take a break. Because I need to gather myself, I need to gather the organization, and we need to. That was hard because so many people were still coming to us. So many people were still, we did our back to school, we did our trunk or treat. But outside of that, I mean, we didn't do it, like really. Let me not lie. We did still help people, but wasn't in the capacity that I wanted to. Okay. I wanted to prevent homelessness. I wanted to help out with rent, utilities. We just didn't have the funding for that. I mean, we had 50 people needing help in January, and it got worse. So it's like having to stop and say, no, I can't help you. No, we can't right now. I'm sorry, we have to refer you to somebody else. That was the most heartbreaking thing I went through last year. That was depressing. Like it was so depressing because that's my life is given. So to actually have to stop and say we don't have the capacity, it sucked. So yeah.
What are the requirements to get help from Selfless Hands? Because I mean, anybody can walk up to you and say they need help, but do they really need help?
Yeah. So through our intake process, okay. That's what we identify because it's a question of do you need what kind of help do you need? Are you needing like for example a person that is not literate, they need help with actually understanding what they're signing, what they're getting stuff into, rent, utilities. We have someone that is disabled. What kind of help are you needing? We may have somebody that's able bodied and can do everything, but they just need to know where to go. Okay, you need referrals.
Right.
So it's like after our intake process, that's where we're able to figure out, okay, what exactly are you needing? Are you needing food? Are you just needing resources? And you say you need a job, you can find a job. You just don't know how to do your resume. Okay, we can get you to somebody. So that's how we figured out. So it's not necessarily like a set requirement. I mean, the requirement is that you're either you need help. That was the requirement. But as far as what, for like rent, utility, for example, like I need to see a cutoff notice, or I need to see your balance. I have to see, are you about to be evicted because of a situation that's out of your hands? Or are you mismanaging your funds?
Right. Because, that's what I was trying to get down to.
Because if I come over there to your place and you got a car that's like 6 figures and you got your hair done, your nails done, I see, homeboy with the nice J's and everything, but then you're behind on rent, but I see a bag of weed on the corner. You got money, you're mismanaging it.
Right.
So now let's talk about that. So now we need to talk about financial literacy, financial education. So, let's figure that out because you're not in need. Mm-hmm. You're just mismanaging your money. So that's another thing we have to start getting into as well.
So do you feel like with Selfless Hands, I know you were talking about people that are able bodies and they can get a job. Mm-hmm. You help with resumes?
So Yes, I do, but when I don't have the bandwidth, I do connect them to my people that can.
Okay.
So, yes.
Have you taken advantage of AI yet?
I love ChatGPT. That's my best friend. But no, I definitely yes,
Okay.
Lord, because they put it out there. You know,
have agencies like have they reached out as far as being able to put people to work to maybe help you get people jobs?
So that is in talks, but we haven't solidified it.
Okay.
Yes,
that's
so
awesome.
That's all in words. So hopefully I can start getting some help.
Okay. How do you feel about the youth who have been misplaced or put out their houses? Do you have any resources for them?
So one, I love partnering with DHS to locate those services like Pivot. Okay. And then I'm still starting to pretty much touch bases with all of our resources that we have, because there's some resources that's not even around anymore. And then there are some that, they're there, but then they shifted their focus. So like right now I'm getting back into the community and everything like that. That's what I'm actually working on. Like matter of fact, I want to say a couple weeks ago, I went to the luncheon for Tinker Federal Credit Union, and I sat at a table with a lady that they work with foster care, and they also work with kids that were aging out of DHS. Okay. So, and even kids that got kicked out. And I hate that I just forgot her name. So I'm still learning about those specific like needs. So anytime we have kids that in those situations, my team also worked in CPS and juvenile services. So they're the ones that hey, listen, can you help find resources for this? So
how do you feel about customer service in the sense that a lot of places offer help, but they're assholes?
Oh my God, I can't stand them. I'm like, y'all can choke now. But I think, I can't stand poor customer service because you don't have to be there. Mm-hmm. It's so many. If you don't like dealing with people, man, go find another job. Because what I've learned, just even being on both sides of it is, I've been on the side where everything is just going so wrong, and you have no idea the day I'm having, and then you're being an asshole. Like you never know. You could be that person's last straw. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been there where I remember having a terrible day. Like, I think one time I got in my car, I didn't have no gas. I had just started my cycle. My head was hurting. I done sat here and I dropped something on my toe. Like it was very minor things, right? Nothing, but they add up. So can you imagine the people that's going through not so minor things, but then your attitude, even as minor as it may be to you, is major? Because now they about ready to cuss you out when all you could have did was just smile and been more graceful, you know. So I learned that, and I think even working, for I used to work for the VA in the severe mental health trauma clinic, and they needed love, they needed grace, they needed a laugh. Sometimes some people just need to laugh. You just never know. You crack one joke, respectful joke, but you crack one joke and make them laugh, and they'll remember that for the next 2 weeks because you were the one thing that showed them that dang, the sun is out. So customer service is very important to me. I can't stand assholes. I can't stand it. I know I ain't perfect. I have my asshole ways, but that's more so if you come to me and that's, but it's not in the line of field because even in the line of work that I do, people are always nice. Even with DHS, I was a CPS worker. Just being CPS, you the op, know? Like, I remember I had one lady, I went to her house and they was talking about, she has a machete. She's threatening to kill anybody try to take her kids. So when I, knocked on the door, she was like, I got a machete. I will kill you. I said, girl, open this door. Girl, open the door. Let's talk. So then we sat down, we talked, and I had explained to her, like, honey, you ain't gonna keep your kids talking like that. You know what I'm saying? By the time you talk to them, you realize that she's a really great protective mom. It just minor things. And now you finna lose your freedom and your kids over something that can be so resolved because you want to make a threat talking about you. But what if I would have came in there hostile? What would they have done? You know what I'm saying? So now, matter of fact, I think after that, we stayed in contact for, I think, the next year or so. Just on some, how you doing, whatever. Phenomenal mother. Kids growing up, they probably about to graduate high school now. But customer service,
Okay. So if somebody wanted to start a nonprofit, what are 3 things that you would tell them?
Read, research. No. I would really, truly, I hate this thing about gatekeeping. People love to say, oh my God, I'm supposed to be gatekeeping. No, it's really not gatekeeping if you just pick up a book.
Right.
If you Google. Like the stuff that people think is gatekeeping is stuff you literally can find. When I started Selfless Hands or the process, I literally bought a How to Start a Nonprofit for Dummies. They have a For Dummies about that.
Yeah, they do.
They have a For Dummies about almost anything, how to blink. I literally, if you want to start a nonprofit, do the research. Look and see exactly why do you want to start a nonprofit. That's the first thing. Oh, well, I want to give out. You don't need a nonprofit to do that. Right. You can literally find organization like, I have a lot of people that want to get into women empowerment. It's about 50, 11 women empowerment groups out here. Mm-hmm. That's great. But how many of that can be partnerships? How many of that can you just collaborate with them? How many, I made sure when I started my nonprofit, it wasn't nothing that was already being done. Mm-hmm. Because if that was the case, then I could just go support them. Right. So I would do that. I would do research. I would do a SWOT analysis. Like that stuff that I learned when I was in school. I would really start actually meeting with other people that is in the field that you want to do. I traveled. So when I went to Houston for Hurricane Harvey. That's where I met my mentor. He's like a bonus grandfather to me now. But meeting him, I don't want to have a community center because I don't really want to be around kids like that. Like I like the hustle and bustle of the crisis relief. Okay. So it's like shop around, see what you like, see what you don't like. You might think, oh yeah, I want to start something to help out with homelessness. But then you got to think later on when it gets time to get funding, they're going to ask you, well, why should I support you when I have a Homeless Alliance? You have to be able to answer that, and if you can't, then they're going to write you off. Right. So that's stuff that I would think about is research, evaluating things, network, see what's out there already so you're not reinventing the wheel, and be truly passionate because people start it and they don't finish. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nonprofits that started around the time that I started and they're not around anymore. That makes sense. So, yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like there's anything that's lacking that you would suggest to people? Like, oh, maybe you should aim towards this or something that you've seen like, oh, I wish we had this.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that I'm like, man, this would be super awesome if we had this. I think what was the most recent thing. Man, it's a few things that I'm like.
She's like, I ain't giving them out. She gonna use them.
Well, no, heck no. But the funny thing is, I don't want to. It's needed, but I don't want to be the one to do that. That's not my ministry. Like it. So I'm trying to think. For example, like sober living. For example, okay, we need so many more of those, right? But I am not equipped to handle that. Nor do I desire to. Right. You know what I'm saying? But the work needs to be done. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think like, okay, so for example, when I'm helping out with families that they're needing to learn, okay, so scenario. I come in, I'm helping a family that lost everything, right? Mm-hmm. And then we're helping get in rehoused. But as I'm learning about them, I'm learning that they have 2 or 3 sons, single mom. Okay. They need to learn skills. Right. Like, I so wish I had the time to teach them all of these things. I wish that it was like I could have an org that they provide crisis counseling, but also helping hold their hand after the fact. So like after we're done, y'all are literally focused on just that.
That makes sense.
I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So that is another thing where it's like, here's somebody that's listening to this, that's something that's needed, because it's not a lot of that, and it's not a lot of that for us. Like helping that out there, I have yet to see it. I see men's group and stuff like that, but I don't know, to me that's specifically for that.
That makes sense.
Or helping people get back on their feet, real, like from start to finish after homelessness. I still don't see a lot of that for us within our community, but I know I can't be that person.
I understand. So I definitely understand. So can you tell people how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so selflesshandsfoundation.com. Well, no, I'm sorry. Actually, I bought all the domains. So selflesshands.org.com, .us, .net. You can accidentally type it in, you'll find me. Literally, you can Google it.
I love that.
Social media, literally, Selfless Hands Foundation, then Raven Crisp. So you can contact me however, social media. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I do have one last question.
Talk to me.
How long is the intake process? Because if somebody needs help now, how long does it take to actually get that help?
Oh, it's very, very quick.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. Like, we got a phone call yesterday, and we haven't got to go through the full intake deal, but the response back is pretty quick.
Okay, that's awesome.
But we're also still working through this entirely new process for us. So, right now it's been pretty quick because we just rolled it out. But over time, I was have to figure out realistic what is the average response time if we're dealing with 10 people we got to do intakes for.
That makes sense. Because I've seen people like, I need help this week, but you won't hear nothing for a month. So it's like,
yeah. And I know that we actually have some from like last year when we had to take that pause. I know some folks that I probably need to go back and call and say, hey, listen, I'm sorry we bought those services. But we're back. Are you still good? Are you okay? No? Okay, well, let's help you now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I do thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Great experience. I've learned so much.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to tell anybody?
No, thank you. Be great. Have a great day. And be the